This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, episode number 388. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network. I am your host, Riley Bowman, and this is the final in a series of interviews I had the privilege of recording at the Sig Sauer booth while at SHOT Show 2020. We've released these 6 episodes over the last week, and I'll tell you, it has been a lot of fun. We've talked with Max Michel, Hannah Bilodeau, Lena Michalek, Daniel Horner, Bruce Gray, and now it's my privilege to bring to you an episode recorded with Jack Carr, author of The Terminal List and True Believer, and the soon-to-be-released, in fact, on April 14th of this year, a new book, Savage Son. I had a lot of fun talking with Jack Carr. He is a former Navy SEAL sniper. He's an outdoorsman. In fact, if you go to his website, officialjackcarr.com, I'll tell you, you're going to really like it because this is one of our guys. As far as you go to his website, and I'll tell you, there's a video montage playing in the background on the main page that just opens with him running through the woods in the wilderness and then shooting a crap ton of guns. So Jack Carr is the man. I just started reading this last week. His first book, The Terminal List, which my understanding is going to be made into a movie. So that's really cool. And this book actually was a copy he handed to me personally after we recorded this interview and signed it for me. And I'll tell you, thank you so much, Jack. I will treasure it forever. And I am thoroughly enjoying the book. In fact, right from the opening of the book, I was hooked because he starts by describing the main character, James Reese, who is in the mountains of western Wyoming, right along the border with Idaho, and describes the environment exactly how I know it, because that's my country, and I drive through there all the time as I travel back home to see family and for various activities and things, and I love that part of the world. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I know the exact location where James Reese sets up in the opening of that book and the precise location on the road that's referenced. I don't want to give away too much now, okay? But I'm pretty sure I know exactly where this dude is at in the opening scenes of this book. And so immediately I was in love. Guys, I think if you haven't already picked up a copy of The Terminal List, his first book, you're going to want to do that. And I'm already looking forward, I'm sure, to reading True Believer. And I'm sure by the time Savage Son is released, it will be in my hands as well. Well, I've talked long enough, but I do want to recognize and give a big thank you to Sig Sauer for partnering with us, inviting us into their booth, into their podcast area up on the upper level. And it was just so much fun to hang out with those guys, with Hannah and all the gang, and record these interviews for you guys, our listeners, this last week while we were at SHOT Show. So I hope you've enjoyed the content, some maybe different, unique things that you've heard on the show this last week that maybe aren't accustomed to hearing. We'll get back into the regularly scheduled programming here the next week. But until then, enjoy this interview with Jack Carr. I know you're going to love it. Let's roll that tape now. Welcome, guys, back to SHOT Show 2020. This is our final interview of the week.
Final interview? I'm the final one? This is awesome. I started here. It was the first interview with Kyle Lamb in the SHOT Show booth, and now I'm finishing it up, anchoring it.
There you go.
This is awesome. I love it.
Bookends.
Yeah, that's it, which is very appropriate.
We're going to be talking about books today. Guys, the voice you're hearing is Jack Carr, now famous, very famous author.
Not famous, but I feel very fortunate that people are liking these novels.
Dude, you're taking off like wildfire. I see you everywhere, and it appears that your books are selling extremely well.
They're exceeding expectations, as they tell me at Simon & Schuster, which is it's a good thing.
That's good news. That means more books in your future.
I hope so.
If you like to write, that is.
I do. I love writing, and I grew up reading in this genre, reading guys like Tom Clancy and David Morrell and Nelson DeMille and A.J. Quinnell and J.C. Pollock, these guys in the 80s that had protagonists with backgrounds that I wanted to have in real life one day. So as a kid, growing up in the 80s, you're essentially watching movies. You're watching Chuck Norris. You're watching Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're watching Sylvester Stallone. And for me, I was reading all these novels and eagerly awaiting the next one from these authors. So I always knew that one day after I served my country in uniform, that I would transition and start writing the kind of books that I had been reading growing up.
That is awesome.
I just, as I was getting out, gave it a shot, and then here we are anchoring the SHOT Show 2020.
That's great. Now, did you actually have any training in writing, or is it just something that came naturally to you?
It came very naturally to me because my mom's a librarian, so we grew up with this love of reading, and we spent a lot of time in the library researching. So when I told her I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, we went down to the local library to do research in very early 80s. So you could do that research in about an hour. There was hardly anything written about SEALs back then. A couple of nonfiction mentions, and that was it. But my takeaways were, hey, this is the toughest training ever devised by a modern military, or at least that's what I read in Soldier of Fortune magazine, Gung Ho magazine, and a couple of little articles that chapters that were in some nonfiction books back then, and that SEALs were kind of touted as a very elite fighting force. And so that's all I needed to hear as a 7-year-old kid. That's all the recruiting they needed to do. I was totally in. But all that reading that I did back then, that really gave me that foundation. And those authors that I mentioned were my early professors in the art of storytelling. I could identify what I liked, what I didn't like, and then my mom introduced me to Joseph Campbell, who did a series of interviews with Bill Moyers in 1988 called The Power of Myth. And he talked about the hero's journey and how across cultures, different cultures that never had any interaction with one another, they had a very similar tradition of storytelling. A reluctant hero who goes on a journey, who meets a mentor, who gives him knowledge or some sort of a tool to help complete his task. The hero is tested in some sort of a crucible and then emerges transformed and usually returns back from where they came to pass those lessons on to their society, to the next generation. So seeing that in 1988, I was able to then apply that model to things that I liked, and then to see things I didn't like and say, hey, did it follow that model, or did it vary? And is that why perhaps it wasn't very good, or I didn't like, or it didn't resonate with me? So as far as studying, no specific. I didn't take a class. I read a few books on writing. One called On Writing by Stephen King. A few books on the creative process by Stephen Pressfield, who wrote Gates of Fire, Legend of Bagger Vance.
Oh yes.
And a couple other ones. The Successful Novelist by David Morrell, who created Rambo back in 1972. But I think you can study how to do something too much, and eventually you just have to actually go do it. So that's what I tell people, and everybody's going to have a different threshold for how much they need to know, how much they need to study, how much they need to look into something before they actually start applying themselves to doing it. And mine was to read those few things, but I had a very solid background reading growing up and knew what I was going to do, so it wasn't something I woke up one morning and then decided to do, which I think would probably be a lot more difficult. But yeah, I love what I'm doing now. I love what I did in the SEAL teams. Feel very fortunate to have had a good run for 20 years, and then feel like I've found my next purpose in life, that next mission, and love writing. Absolutely love every part of the process.
That's super cool. Now I got to ask. You became a SEAL, which is, that's remarkable to me. When I talk to guys and actually a lot of SEALs I've talked to. I've talked to several that said, I knew I was going to be a Navy SEAL. I think there's something to that, because you're already making up your mind in advance. Like you're making that decision. Like, I'm going to do that. I know it's going to be tough. I know it's going to probably suck at times, but I'm going to do it. But yet, there's tons of guys that go to buds and just get wiped out.
Yep.
So, and obviously guys that go back again and again, and maybe it takes a second or third time. But I was actually kind of curious. A lot of folks will look at the SEALs as our heroes of our nation. So is that hero model, has that played out in your life?
Well, there's a few things there, and one of them is because I wanted to do this from age 7. I told people, I told my parents, I told my friends, relatives that one day I was going to be a SEAL. And back then it's like, I got the same looks that I got when I told people I was going to be an author. It's kind of like, that's nice, you'll grow out of it. That's what you get from most people. But I just never varied. I never wavered from wanting to do that. And even at that early age, I started essentially training for it. And as I got older, I started running cross country or going to the backcountry with my parents, backpacking and that sort of thing, rock climbing, doing things that would push myself, make me uncomfortable, make me a more self-reliant person. And I think all that helped. And going to bud, so yeah, 80% is what you read, and that's all the thought I gave to it. I'm like, well, I'll be in the 20%. That's all the thought I gave to how hard Buds is or is going to be. 80% quit. That's why I want to go. And so in Hell Week, when you typically get most of your attrition, I remember being there in the surf zone, and the waves are crashing over your head, and you have your arms linked with the other guys in your class, and you're freezing and you're shaking, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to do this till Friday? Wow, it's only Monday. Or no, it's only Sunday. That's right, it's only Sunday evening. But then people get up and quit, and typically it was the guys that when I showed up had been like the fastest, the strongest, the loudest, and when you show up, you're like, wow, look how strong that guy is. This is before CrossFit. This is like 1980 style bodybuilding, encyclopedia bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right.
and then run as far as fast as you can. Like that was the training back then. Now, obviously, it's a lot more scientific. People are eating right, they're sleeping, they're doing all these things, but 80% attrition is still what we get. But point being, people would get up out of that surf zone, those guys that were strongest, fastest, whatever, they'd get up and quit. And a lot of the class would say, come back. And I was always like, oh, come back. Because I didn't, like, this is working.
Right.
If this person wants to quit, this is the program working, and that person needs to go. So yeah, it was a good run, and but they also, after, let's see, a couple years after September 11th, they started realizing, hey, we need more special operations guys, we need more special forces, we need more combat controllers, we need more SEALs, we need more Rangers, and they're like, okay, big bureaucracy, make us more SEALs, make us more Rangers, make us more SF guys. And so what they did to try to stem that attrition, that 80%, was to put everybody that was going into special operations in the Navy into one company at boot camp. And then after boot camp, instead of going to get a military specialty like we did before, and then go to BUDS, knowing that 80% of those people are going to quit very quickly, and then go out to the fleet and already be trained up in their military specialty, we're going to train them up. We're going to keep them there. We're going to give them good nutrition. We're going to talk to them about mindset and leadership, and we're going to talk to them about how to hold these boats and climb these ropes, and we're going to get them as strong as we possibly can, and then they'll go to BUDS. And so tons of money was dropped into this project, and they still do it today. And people would show up at BUDS, and then we got 80% attrition. It's we called it fitter quitters, really. So I mean, it just goes to show and confirm that, hey, this is all, it's a mental deal. Any average high school athlete can physically make it through BUDS. If you're not in the best shape, you're going to get in shape in about 1 week by running in that sand and going through that obstacle course. Like, you're going to get in shape there. Better to be in shape before you get there, but average fit person can make it through physically. It's that mental piece, and that's why they wear you down mentally, and that's why that first night of Hell Week, you're thinking about Friday. That's probably not where your mind should be.
Good thoughts there, and I appreciate you actually approaching it from that angle. That mindset piece, that's an important one. Mindset's an important thing, even in the world of self-defense, personal defense. Carrying a gun can still carry. Different mindset, different arenas for sure, but mindset is key. And of course, as you served for 20 years, I'm sure that was something that had to obviously continue with you.
Oh yeah, and it was. I think it was part of me really since birth. I think all of us are kind of born with that mindset and that understanding that, hey, we have a sixth sense here. What is that? And today you don't have to pay attention to it as much as you did maybe when a saber-toothed tiger was about to eat you, but that's still there. That's in our DNA. Providing for your family, hunting, putting that food on the table, and then defending your family, defending the tribe, defending the country. Those are things that are innate in all of us, and we're all here because our ancestors were good at those things. Somewhere along the line, they were good at those things. They had to be, or we would not be here today. Today, especially in this country, things are a little easier. We're a lot more comfortable today, and so people don't pay attention to that sixth sense. A lot of people don't train. A lot of people don't think about where that food came from that's on their table. They don't think that they're going to have to step up and defend their family. You know what they're going to do? They can call Uber Eats and have something delivered, or somebody, if they need the police, they're going to call 911. They're not going to take care of it themselves.
Call 911 and wait
for 10, 20, 30 minutes maybe. So we've kind of, I don't know, we've gotten more comfortable in this country, probably to our detriment, and but not everybody, not everyone. And those of us that kind of recognize that call and kind of heed it and think about it and train for that situation, that we as leaders of our families recognize that we need to step up and defend them, and also train them so that they can do the same for their families when they get older. So that's always, I think it's always been a part of me. The military kind of hones it a little more, because when you're going into Ramadi, or you're going into some of these places like that, high IED threats, or you're going into you have to be on. And
Yeah.
a lot of guys, when they came home, they had a hard time flipping that switch. And I talk about that actually in the novels because it was something that was, I don't know, something I thought about quite a bit. A lot of guys came home and didn't know how to kind of regulate that. Didn't know how to, I shouldn't say flip the switch, I should say kind of maybe regulate it a little more. And realize that, hey, when they step out that door at home, they're not stepping into the streets of Ramadi in 06.
Yeah.
But it's good to be aware and vigilant. But then there's a hyper-vigilancy where you can take it maybe a little too far. That's not healthy. So it's knowing how to regulate that,
Yeah,
and
totally.
know when to be condition yellow, when to pop it up, and when to bring it back down, and most of the time just to be to train so you're competent and confident with your chosen weapon systems, but that you're not always going from shadow to shadow, corner to corner, looking for snipers on every rooftop.
Yeah.
So the situation really dictates that level of
So
awareness. But all of us need that. You always have to be aware. That's for sure. Always have that head looking around, and just being self-aware, and hopefully react to things before they get too dicey.
Yeah, really good thoughts there. Thank you, Jack. I think we should transition a little bit into talking about your books. So, in fact, some of what you're talking about comes out in your books, in the theme of your books. And so, tell us about the Terminal List, True Believer, and I know you got a third one on the way.
Yeah.
So, what do we got?
Yep, so the first book was the Terminal List, second one True Believer, third one Savage Son, coming out in April here. But the first one takes place in and around San Diego, which is where I was when I started writing it. I was at that point in my time in uniform where I'd made the decision to get out of the military and take care of my family. My last deployment to Iraq was the last time that I would tactically maneuver guys in the battlefield, and I'd made that rank where you're still a leader, but you're not tactically leading guys on the battlefield anymore when you're up at those senior ranks. So I started enlisted. I wanted to be a sniper. Typically officers aren't snipers, so I started out enlisted guy, became a sniper, and then went to OCS, which is the same thing as boot camp. You just get yelled at by Marines instead of Navy people, and then went right back to the SEAL teams as an officer. And when I made the decision to get out, I also made the decision to start writing. And that was, we're in San Diego, and I want to carry, I want to conceal, and I want to be able to protect my family. But guess what? You're in California, and you can't do that very easily.
Right.
I was very lucky in that I did get a concealed carry permit there, but it took a lot of doing. And you get kind of approved to go through this process, and you're going to get a concealed carry permit. They make it as hard as they possibly can to go and do these things, because you have a 30-day window where you have to have your bills that show where you live. It can't be one from like 2 months ago that you find out of a drawer. Like, it has to be in this 30-day window where you also take your test, go to the range, which is only open 1 day a month. So if you're working, it's open for other people to go there to shoot, but for you to go there and qualify, if you have a job where you can't leave that job to run down there for an hour and do your qualification, you're out of luck. You fall out of that 30 days. So there's all these administrative things that are not set up to make it easy for you to even just go through the process. But
and they don't care that you're a Navy SEAL and that you have clearances and background checks up the wazoo.
Or know that you could just go on base and check out any sort of weapon that you want or any explosive that you want. It's ridiculous. So so let's say you did have a concealed carry permit in California, which I did, then you get to the front gate, and then you can't bring your personal SIG 226 on base or whatever you have. That has to stay at home. So between home and base, you're really not allowed to have them. But then when you get on base, then you can go check out pretty much any weapon in the arsenal, which is anyway. Once again, this is the government, this is bureaucracy, and they excel at not making sense and not doing things logically. So point being, as I was writing this book, it was very natural for me to put a couple paragraphs in there about how hard it was for this character, who's also a former enlisted Navy SEAL sniper, who is an officer, who is at that time in his career where he's decided to shift gears and get out and take care of his family. And that's when disaster strikes in the novel. But I mentioned how ridiculous it is that he can go on base and get all these things, yet he can't get a concealed carry permit in California after all the things that he's done, all the training he's had, when he has access to all these things anyway. So I had to throw that in there as a little dig at the state of California for not being very not being on the side of freedom.
Yep, so true. Well, and now we got True Believer. Tell us a little bit about that book.
Yep, so it's a continuation of the story. And when we talked earlier about that hero's journey, I was very cognizant that each book has to fit in there somehow,
Right.
and also a series with the same character has to fit within that larger story arc. So that was fun to figure out. The first one is really a book about revenge without constraint, and I put a little yellow sticky on the side of my computer that said revenge as I was writing. So if any paragraph, sentence, chapter didn't directly or indirectly lead back to that theme, I edited it out. It was gone. And I think that really helped when I sent it to Simon & Schuster, because they hardly had any edits. And I thought when this thing went there that they'd have all these experts that would just, change it around and, make it palatable for the public or whatever they do.
Right.
They hardly changed anything. They had 3 questions. One was like, would he really say this here? Would he really think this here? And then a third one that I can't remember right now. So just like really basic fixes, and they were really good fixes, but that's it. And I thought there was going to be a ton more. But
was that different from your first book?
So that was the first one.
Oh, you're still talking about
that was the first one.
Yep.
And the first one, you have all the time in the world to get it as good as you can possibly get it. The second one, then you're on that deadline. You're on that one-a-year deadline. But I started writing the second one, True Believer, before I even finished the first, or before I submitted the first one, because I was always going to write 2. And I thought back to John Grisham, who wrote A Time to Kill first, and he could not give that book away. So if he'd stopped then, he'd still be practicing law in some law office, miserable probably. But because he went forward and he wrote The Firm, that one is the one that took off. Then Tom Cruise is in the movie, and then we have a John Grisham novel every year since.
For like eternity.
Exactly. And so if he had stopped, though, he'd get discouraged. So I was always going to write 2. Now, if both of them didn't hit, both of them didn't get picked up by anybody, then I was going to reevaluate. And, of course, I had some contingency plans, because that's important to have some contingency plans as well. But almost all my effort, all my bandwidth went into making these as good as they could possibly be. So the second one was really a continuation, and I wrote Redemption on my computer for that one. So it's a story of redemption, and that really transitioned. And I'd seen so many people get out of the military, and I was getting out of the military myself as I was writing True Believer, so I could take the emotions really behind that transition and apply them to a transition for the character. Him learning to live again, him needing to find that next mission, that next purpose in life, which is what we do. And it's not just the military, any transition in life, any job, anything, any divorce, whatever it is, moving forward. It's all about getting back up after you get knocked down and keep pushing forward. So that's really what that second one is about. It's a novel of violent redemption, I like to say. Now the first one, it is a lot of action. People love it, but there's a little bit more to it too. And it's really about a guy who essentially becomes the terrorist that he'd been fighting overseas for, in this case, the last 16 years at war. And he brings those tactics and techniques that had worked so well against us from the enemy. He brings those to the home front to go, after he unravels a conspiracy, he goes and starts using those tactics, techniques, and procedures against the people that have been sending his troop downrange and that were part of this conspiracy. And then if you take it one level deeper, it's really about a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan who brings those wars home to the front doorsteps of people who have been sending young men and women to their deaths now for 20 years. So there's a couple different levels.
And of course, all this is based on true experience, that you went through, right?
So this is all the emotions, and the feelings come from real places. So this is a totally fictional novel, but I think the way why it resonated with Simon & Schuster and why it's resonating with readers is because those feelings come from real places. So I tap into things that happen downrange, and then I apply them to a completely fictional narrative, but it reads like it's true because the feelings I'm so passionate about the things that I felt while I was doing these different things downrange. So I think that's what made it stand out from the thousands of other books that Simon & Schuster reads that come across those desks every year. And then Savage Son that comes out in April, I'm so excited for this one because it's the book I've wanted to write since the 6th grade when I first read The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. It's a short story written in 1924, and really it's about hunter versus hunted and hunting of people. And I wanted to, even in 6th grade, I knew that one day I would write a fictional thriller that paid tribute to that novel that I loved, or that short story that I read in 6th grade. And that Savage Son is that tribute. So it's really explores the dark side of man through that hunter versus hunted type paradigm. So I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah. Can you tell us, obviously your background as a Navy SEAL is right from the beginning. It kind of is mirroring your life to some extent as far as where the character is at in his life. But your background also in weapons and tactics and all that obviously comes to play in this. And that's a really cool thing because everybody's read books, particularly if you know anything about guns at all, you're like, yeah, that can't be, that's not real. There's nothing like that exists, So, how has that helped you along as you've tried to. I mean, what kind of guns and weapons and things do we find in the books?
Well, it's obviously very important to me to get that right.
Yep.
And even some of the things that I thought I'd known for 20 years, more than 20 years, because I started training before I got into the SEAL teams. I wanted to make sure, because I know people are going to check, especially with my background. They're going to check on all these things in there. But I've been coming to SHOT Show since 2003 or 4. And if I was in Virginia Beach at the time, and a buddy called me and said, "You got to go out, come fly out to Vegas." I'm like, "I'm in Virginia Beach. I can't just fly out to Vegas." He's like, "Oh, dude, there's this thing called SHOT Show. You got to come out and check all these new lights and guns and suppressors and all this stuff. It's amazing." So I hopped on a plane to Vegas, and at that time, the tactical, or even though it's after September 11th, the tactical side of SHOT Show was about as big as the SIG booth back then.
Right.
And then I've been coming back pretty much every year. I only missed them for deployments. But I always wanted to make sure my guys, I was always a gear guy, even before the military, going to the backcountry, rock climbing, whatever it was, mountaineering. In the military, it gave me a lot of opportunity to bring in better gear, because you'd be surprised, especially when I got in the late 90s, the kind of gear that we were using were ridiculous. Like, people just didn't, I don't know what it was. I don't know why, but we had horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was cool to be able to kind of, bring that experience from going into the backcountry so much growing up, and bring some of that to the SEAL teams pre-September 11th. Then after September 11th, the Golden Connex boxes kind of opened up a bit more, and the innovation that really happened after that, because we've been at war for so long. I mean, things have just increased exponentially. But by coming to these things and being so into the gear, into the new things that are coming out, always wanting to make it better, being more effective, being more efficient. How can we parlay those into advantages on the battlefield? That was my life, essentially, for 20 years, is thinking about those things. So that gets incorporated in here. And now, even though I didn't think of it at my first SHOT Show, the relationships that I made over those years of coming here and talking about gear and giving some suggestions and learning from all these people here that are innovating in the private sector, and meeting other people from law enforcement, from the federal, local, other military units from that aren't even from this country, but just sharing some of those experiences and how we're working and what we're doing as far as our gear and our tactics. A lot of that happened here. And now things have kind of come full circle, and those same companies are asking me to come sign books, because it features the price. It's very natural for me to put the products that I used in real life and continue to use in real life into the pages of my novels. So to have those companies, that it's very natural for them to ask me to come sign books in their booths, and then I give everybody in the company signed books, and they're really excited to see their products in there and how it's used, and we have this relationship from the past. So it's really special to see how that's all come full circle. And, it was not by any plan of mine. It's just kind of how it happened, and it was a very natural progression for this. But gear people, gun people will love the books, because I try to treat weapons in the novels, both pistols, rifles, shotguns, and blades and tomahawks, as characters in and of themselves. So I like to have them add to the storyline, not just let me Google Navy SEAL knife and see what pops up. Oh, I'll have him carry this. No, I have the whole background. I know the people that make the blades. I have a personal relationship with them. I have a personal relationship with the people that make the ammo, that make these weapons. And they're all in the books and woven into the storyline. And I think that really adds to it, because those weapons are essentially characters in the novel.
That's fun. I like it. Of course, we're here in the Sig Sauer booth. And I actually failed to mention that at the start of the interview, that we got to give Sig Sauer some love, because they were so welcoming to have us come in and do these podcast interviews this week. So you're sporting a Sig Sauer hat, so you must be a fan.
I'm a fan. I carry the P226, of course, for my entire 20 years in the SEAL team. So that will always have always be near and dear to my heart. And I love what SIG is doing. I don't think there's another company out here that is innovating, that is pushing, that has this culture that is so positive yet so humble at the same time. I just love working with this company.
Innovate.
They're amazing. I mean, what they're doing. You go to the factory floor and check out how they're doing these things, and then you talk to the CEO and you talk to the person that's working on the line. Like, everybody in between, everybody is fired up to work there. They're fired up to push the limits. They're fired up to keep innovating, to keep making products that get better and better. It's just incredible. They're not resting. They're not like, oh, we had a success with this, let's just rest on that for the next 10, 20 years. No. They're pushing the boundaries, and they're testing things, and they have a great group of people doing it. So I'm a huge fan of SIG.
Do you see things they're doing that is going to make a difference out there for for your guys?
Well, oh yeah, I mean 3.6. Well, I go 3.65. Like we're not just kicking indoors anymore. We do kick in the doors, and we do all that stuff, and we bring in the helicopters and the Humvees and the ground package and the whole that stuff. But we also go into non-pervasive environments and do things that you'd more closely associate with intelligence services or with federal or local police departments that are doing things in plain clothes and building cases essentially, and building out a pyramid of a criminal organization. Well, you know what? It's very similar to building out a terrorist organization. Who's connected to who? Doing all those sorts of things. So that 226, incredible. Obviously, it was a game changer in the industry. So it's I love that. I carry that and everything they're doing in between. The machine guns they have coming out. Oh my gosh, these things. They're crushing it. So and they know that where these things are going to end up. They're going to end up on the sides of law enforcement, leaving their house every day, going out to do the job, to end up on the sides of not just Special Operations Forces, but now the entire United States military. Guys are going to be taking this into harm's way, to say nothing of all the private citizens that are going to leave their house every morning with a SIG strapped on because they can rely on it. And more so than that, the SIG Academy. We got to talk about SIG Academy for a second. I mean, it's awesome to have a safe full of guns. I mean, we all do. Everybody listening to this podcast probably does. But you also need that training. And I got to get out to SIG Academy this year, and it was awesome. I signed some books out there. Hit the range with all these guys. I mean, the best shooters in the world. I got to hit the range with, get a little tune-up, and awesome. And what a great facility. What a great instructor staff. My former command master chief at SEAL Team 2, Matto, he's in charge out there, runs that place, and he's the best master chief I ever worked for in all my time in Naval Special Warfare. Just an amazing guy. So he's leading the effort out there at SIG Academy. So training is obviously of vital importance, rather than having a safe full of 30, 40, 50 firearms. Maybe have one or two and get out there and know how to use those things, be comfortable, be competent, be confident, know how to use that thing under stress, and get put through the ringer with it in the course of SIG Academy, or wherever you can, go train, get on the range with that thing, get comfortable. Don't just get it and put it on your side. Get out there and train with it.
It's great advice, and I'll tell you, having taken a class at Sig Sauer Academy as well, fantastic place to go. A little bit out there, if you're not close to the Northeast, you got to travel a bit, but it's
beautiful
worth it.
Though. Yeah, I had a great time out there. There's Old Town, wherever that. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Great restaurants, but then you get out there in the country and it's beautiful, and then that range setup is incredible, and the store out there is amazing.
Yes.
And I thought the same thing. I was signing books and I was driving out there. I'm like, oh man, is anybody going to show up out here? And sure enough, they packed that place.
Good.
It is a great store.
Well, the store is kind of,
it's awesome.
this booth is like a representation of that store.
It's like a big, yeah, exactly. This is what you see when you go into that store. You see all this stuff. And then, of course, this is magnified here where it's shot and everything. But get out to that. It's a destination.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Now, do you mind if I ask you a little bit more personally, as far as, we talked a little bit about concealed carry. You carry concealed. What's your choice of concealed carry gun?
So 365 is what I carry most often, because I found that smaller weapon system, for whatever reason, even though it's not that much smaller than an X carrier or compact, but being a small, for whatever reason, it's just easier for me to grab. Like I just find myself gravitating to that, because you're juggling kids, the dog is barking, whatever else, everybody's in the car waiting on you, and you're getting your stuff on, and you're getting your wallet, keys, phone, pistol, mag, knife. Okay, I'm ready. It just seems for me, for whatever reason, it's just I'm much more apt to grab that 365 than anything else.
Cool.
And but I do love my X carry and the compact. The compact in particular is one of my favorites. So
Same here.
If I'm going somewhere else, like where if I'm leaving the general vicinity of where I am, then I take that one. And just because obviously it's a little bigger and longer sight radius, and obviously all that stuff.
And it's a good shooter too.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
love that thing.
Yeah, I ran that through whole class. Do you know Jeff Gonzalez by chance?
So I don't know if you remember me or not, but he was one of my buds instructors through third phase. So and he actually taught us the pistol stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd done a lot of work before I came in the military because I was always training, getting ready to go. So I was always shooting, especially during my the 4 years before I came into the military. As soon as I hit age 18, I guess. But seeing him handle a weapon in front of the class, you could instantly tell, okay, this guy doesn't just do what the military taught him. Like, he is out there on his own training, because you can recognize. You can just recognize how someone handles a weapon of any kind. You can tell a lot about them. And so you probably wouldn't remember me, but he was one of my third phase buds instructors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I took a class with him last summer and shot that X compact the whole way through.
Nice.
Did very well. So
that's
a great system.
And I shot, what is it, the X5 Legion? Is that the I shot that thing on the range. That was awesome. I love that thing. I think there's a new version of it out here, actually, maybe for this show or over the last few months. But that thing rocks. Yeah. I love that thing. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I got the Rattler, of course, which is that if you don't have a Rattler, you need one. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
Right.
That's optic on front, and I got a when I was at the Sig Academy at their pro shop. I got the adapter for a light because I was like trying to figure out, you're juggling kids and you're writing books and working on all this stuff, and like what adapter? I don't have an armor anymore, so it's very helpful for me for someone that just does that stuff and puts the right spacers in and gets the right screw in and it's at the right spot. And it can do it a lot more efficiently than I can. But I found the right adapter for a light to go on that Rattler. So that thing is now, that's the thing I grabbed that's next to the bed if somebody's coming at 300 blackout. Just lights out with that thing.
Small enough to fit in a bag if you need to take it somewhere.
That thing's legit.
Yeah, it's a really cool setup. Man, Jack, this has been a pleasure talking to you, buddy. We wish you the best of luck with your book, the new release, Savage Son.
Thank you.
April
14th for Savage Son. Yep.
Nice.
And the other two are out. And since this is a gun-centric podcast, if people are interested in more details about the weapons that I talk about in the book, then I talk about that a lot more on my website. So at officialjackcarr.com, there's a blog, and you can go and I talk about the Mark 11, Mark 12s that I used downrange, and some of the weapons in the book that go a little deeper specifically into those weapons, where it's not necessarily appropriate to spend 5 or 6 pages describing a knife in one of the books, but you can go to the website and learn a little bit more about that. And
that's awesome.
And then, Jack Carr USA on the social channels. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, but Instagram is where I'm most active and where I engage with people. And I try to get back to everybody, because I feel so fortunate that people are interested in these books and they're resonating with people. And so I look at it as kind of my storefront where I interact with everyone. And so please visit me there if you're interested in following along on the journey.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you have a resource like that on your website to tie in with the books and provide that greater level of detail. That's awesome.
Yep, I love it.
Cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun talking with you today, Jack.
Yep.
Especially here on the tail end of the show.
This is it.
We're all tired, but you've been
tired?
You've been very.
What?
Wow.
So I did post this morning. I posted what an accurate portrayal, 100% accurate, of what the final day at SHOT looks like. And it's Chuck Norris buried in his Ram Charger in Lone Wolf McQuaid. And he wakes up under there. They buried him alive, and he pours a beer over his head, takes a drink of it, spits it out, and then puts on the supercharger and blasts out of his grave with his Ram Charger and runs over somebody.
Right.
So that's pretty much what SHOT Show Friday morning is like for those that couldn't join us here. So that's exactly what it's like. But it was so awesome to start here with a podcast at SIG on Tuesday morning, and then to be finishing it up, anchoring it today at SIG on Friday. So it was a true pleasure to get to talk for a bit, and hopefully we can do it again one of these days soon.
Thank you for fitting me into your busy schedule and being here, and would love to talk to you again.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jack.
So there you have it. That's a wrap on the special Sig Sauer SHOT Show Week podcast interviews. Indeed, very appropriate, I think, to end with an interview like that with Jack Carr. Again, author of Terminal List, True Believer, and now soon coming out, Savage Son. Guys, give him some love. Head on over to officialjackcarr.com. A lot of really cool stuff on his website there. Products you can buy, books. He mentioned some resources on there as well. I got to go and explore that some more still. And also found jackcarrusa.com with other great products you can check out and perhaps buy. And 100% of the profit on the sales of that site, from what I can tell here, says that they go to supporting warriors, organizations such as National Ability Center, Brain Treatment Foundation, Rescue 22 Foundation, SOC-F, the Special Operations Care Fund, Valor for Life, Special Forces Charitable Trust, and Big Hearts Under the Sky. A lot of fantastic organizations there. Anyway, as we wrap it up here, one more time, one big thank you to Sig Sauer. Guys, give them some love as well. Check out their website, sigsauer.com. And with that, I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to try to be long-winded about this. So until next time, don't forget to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.